What's up, guys? Artem MMA Analysis here. Going to be looking at LFA 130, and I can't really wait for this card. I think it's going to be a pretty good card up on UFC Fight Pass. I was going to be putting out my UFC picks tonight, but unfortunately just got a little bit of things going on in my personal life. I don't really have the time right now to be spending multiple hours making my UFC picks, because it does take me a few hours to do those. Obviously, I record them all individually, upload them individually, make individual thumbnails for them all. It takes a long time. I don't have that time today. Unfortunately, I've got somewhere I need to go after I record and upload this. So hopefully everything works out there. My UFC picks will be out tomorrow. My Bellator picks the day after that, and I will be covering both Bellator cards. As for LFA 130, we've only got 6 fights on the card, which is pretty small for an LFA card. We had 8 fights, I believe, a couple of weeks ago. Last week, I believe we had 13 fights, which is a pretty crazy card. I think that there might be a couple of fights added on towards the end of the week that maybe Topology doesn't have listed, or maybe even a couple of amateur fights or something like that. But I'm just going to be covering these 6 fights here. The first one is Manatua Lemaire versus Daniel Gadley. I think that this is a very good test for Manatua Lemaire. I think that if he wins this fight, he probably could be looked at as a pretty hot prospect. He is going to be fighting at 185 pounds. The last weigh-in that he did was at 208 pounds. So I don't know if that was like a heavyweight fight, or if it was a catchweight fight or something like that, or if he missed weight for a light heavyweight bout. But yeah, the last one he fought a guy who was 0-2 and 1 in 4 months. He hasn't actually fought really any good competition in his pro career, but he did fight a couple of good guys in the amateur scene. Daniel, including actually, sorry, before I forget, he does actually have a split decision win. No, sorry, he's got a knockout win over a couple of undefeated guys. And there we go, decision win there too. So anyway, Daniel Gadley, though, he hasn't fought for 2 years. He is 33 years old. All of his wins are to guys that don't have a win on the record, or guys with losing records, and his one loss is to the one guy that did have a winning record. I'm going to be picking Manatua Lemaire. If he's fighting at 208 pounds, he's obviously going to be very big for the middleweight division, and I can just trust that activeness, the fact that he's been so much more active than Gadley. He's fought 3 times in 7 months. I can trust that a lot more than a guy that hasn't fought for 2 years. And also, if you look at his Instagram, he's from South Pacific Islands. I don't really know where that is, but he looks like he's pretty into surfing, which is a pretty cool hobby, I guess, to have as well. The next one, Billy Elekana versus Kohlman Scribner. Billy Elekana holds a split decision win over Brian Battle. This is the guy that I was meaning to talk about with the split decision win. Brian Battle split decision. In case you guys don't know, Brian Battle won the Ultimate Fighter season 29, I believe it was, and then he beat Sean Gore after that as well in a pretty great fight. So Brian Battle signed to the UFC. Billy Elekana holds a split decision win over him. Pretty cool story, I guess, to have, really. And yeah, I think that I'm going to be picking Billy Elekana to win. He is only 26 years old, but so is Kohlman Scribner. Kohlman Scribner does have the 1 loss in his record, but you really can't hold him to that, because it was about 5 years ago in his professional debut. Both guys do have actually a decent amount of amateur experience as well. But yeah, Kohlman Scribner fought twice in 1 year, but Billy Elekana has fought about 3 times in the last year or so, and he did take a decent about 1.5 years off between his pro debut and his last amateur fight. So maybe he's made a lot of improvements since then. I do think that he has. All of his wins, except for his LFA debut, have come inside the distance. I'm going to be picking Billy Elekana to win by knockout in this one here. I know a lot of people have him decision, but I think we're going to get an Elekana KO on this fight right now. And moving on, we do have Gage Saunders versus Jalin Fuller. I'm going to be picking Jalin Fuller to win by knockout here. I think both guys are very good prospects, but Jalin Fuller, man, he's coming off his first professional loss. It's going to be interesting to see how he bounces back from this one, and it's worth noting that this fight is at welterweight. So Jalin Fuller dropping a weight class. Hopefully he can make the weight fine, because he is going to be 6'2" in that octagon there, which is pretty crazy, man. But yeah, Jalin Fuller at one point was 5-0, but then he fought Bruno Assis, who was actually a pretty good prospect. I think he headlined LFA 128 or LFA 127. And Gage Saunders, 8-4, not the greatest record in the world, but he is on a good 3-fight win streak over a guy that's 2-3, a guy that's 6-3, that's a pretty good win there, and a guy that is 0-2, not so great of a win. But he's going to be making his LFA debut. Jalin Fuller has spent a decent amount of time inside the LFA cage, so he's going to be a lot more comfortable inside the LFA. I'm going to be picking Jalin Fuller to win by a knockout in this one here. Both guys are pretty good prospects, I guess you could say. Both guys haven't turned 30 years old yet, and LFA is a pretty good proving ground for prospects. I think Gage Saunders is obviously a lot more experienced, but I think I'm going to be trusting in the power for Jalin Fuller. Knockout win there, submission win, knockout, and a knockout win there. I can trust that Jalin Fuller's going to show the power. Hilarie Rose versus Tiani Valle. I'm going to be picking Hilarie Rose to win this fight inside the distance. Of all of her 5 wins, 4 of them have come inside the distance, 2 of them by submission, 2 of them by knockout. I mostly know Hilarie Rose for her loss to Elise Reed. Elise Reed kind of dominated her on the ground, really, but then she kind of bounced back and lost to a girl, Ashley Nichols. But that fight against Elise Reed was actually a title fight for the 150-pound belt, and after that, that's when Elise Reed got signed to the UFC and lost to Sajara Eubanks in her debut, but then she bounced back, and Elise Reed recently won a fight, which is pretty crazy. She has fought in contender series and lost to Cheyenne Velismus before as well. So Elise Reed Hilarie Rose really has kind of been around and fought a lot of fighters. She fought in Cage Fury FC, fought in CES MMA even, which is a pretty good local organization. She's fought and now she's fighting in LFA. I mean, Hilarie Rose has kind of been everywhere. She's got a lot of experience. She doesn't have the greatest record. She's not the greatest fighter in my opinion in the world, but I think she is going to be good enough to beat Tiani Valle, who's on a 2-fight losing streak, to Catherine Paprocki, who recently fought in the Dana White's Contender Series, and a girl with an 0-1 record. So yeah, I'm going to be picking and trusting Hilarie Rose to get the win for this one here. A lot of people picking decision. Hilarie Rose, man, she's pretty game, and I think we're going to be going with Hilarie Rose by submission for this one here. But Hilarie Rose actually has a TKO win by leg kicks and recently won a kickboxing fight as well. So she's got a pretty good stand-up as well, I guess. I think that Marmic has been set up to get a win in this one here. Currently 4-0 prospect, with actually a couple of good wins on a record over Pauline Machias, who was 4-1 at the time. 3-3, Jenny Iglesias, who I guess at the time she was 2-0. She was a lot more experienced opponent. 6-5, she fought her when she was only 1-0, and then her debut, she fought a debut against another debuting opponent. So yeah, a couple of good wins for Marmic. I think she's going to be able to beat Kelsey Arnesen, who recently just beat a girl who was 0-1 and lost to Tabitha Ricci, actually, who's a pretty good prospect. Or, I don't know if she's a prospect, but she's in the UFC anyway. But no, the point is, Marmic, I feel like has been set up to win this one. Give me Marmic probably by a decision, but I think Marmic is probably a prospect that LFA is trying to build up right now at the moment in this co-main event spot. And Mariusz Ksiazkiewicz versus Alessandro Gambulino. That is really embarrassing how I completely failed to say his name. But I'm going to be picking Mariusz to win this fight, then. He most recently knocked out Graham Park, but before that he did fight Mario Souza. And Mario Souza has bounced back with a couple of wins since his last Dana White's Contender Series fight when he lost to Chidi Njokwani. So I think that if he wins his next one, he's probably going to be on Dana White's Contender Series for a 3rd time. Moving on, prior to that though, he did submit a pretty good 18-8 opponent. He did submit a 7-2 opponent, and he did knock out a guy that was 5-0 only 5 years ago. So this guy, Mariusz, does not fight often whatsoever really, but Alessandro on the other hand is a pretty often fighter. He fought 3 times. About a year and a half, beat a 6-2 guy, 10-4, and 30-14. So Alessandro is not really beating bums, man. The guys he's losing to are pretty legitimate as well over at Jungle Fight, which is a pretty legit regional promotion as well. Matthias is pretty long. He's pretty rangy. He's 6'3" for the middleweight division, which is pretty good. And yeah, he's got power in the hands. He's got a good submission game as well. He did fumble to Mario Souza. Mario Souza is a pretty good young prospect, to be honest, and I feel like the UFC probably could have signed Mario Souza, but they didn't. So yeah, I'm going to be going with Mariusz by KO in this one here. He could be live for a sub, but only 1% of people are picking him by submission, even though he did recently beat a guy. It was pretty good ground game. It was a couple of guys by submission, so I'm going to KO or submission for Mariusz. I don't think that the fight is going to go all 3 rounds. It is a main event, but it is only a 3-round fight, and I think we're going to see Mariusz get a finish in this one here. And maybe he could earn a Dana White's Contender Series call-up, but I don't know, man. The middleweight division at the moment doesn't really need too many more fighters. It's more the light heavyweight, and heavyweight division and flyweight division for the men's that need more. But hey, maybe Mariusz could call out Dana White on the microphone and ask for another shot, and we'll see what happens there. But I'm picking Mariusz to win the fight. I think he's pretty good. He's got a good record. He's fought good opponents. And once again, I apologize for the short video for LFA this week. But there's only 6 fights, and once again, I do have places I need to be after this. So I'll catch you guys in the next one.